My name is Kristine Freude, and I work at the University of Copenhagen. And I'm working with stem cells. Mostly I'm using human cells, human skin cells, which we reprogram into stem cells and study disease phenotypes like Alzheimer's disease and brain diseases. And I will give you a little bit of an overview of the field and problems with the field and why people think that stem cells are the cure to everything, and they actually aren't, at least not right now. So I'm sure that everybody knows a little bit about basic biology, but basically what happens when a sperm and an egg meet and fertilize a zygote, then you have different stages where cells are dividing, starting to divide, make a morula, so basically a ball of cells, and then you end up with a very distinct structure in the end, which is called a blastocyst. And in this blastocyst, you have an inner cell mass, and around there is a trophoblast. And this inner cell mass, you can take out, and you can grow them in a dish. And this is basically the cells which can make an embryo or a full human being. And obviously, these cells have the potential to differentiate into any cell, like muscle cell, hair cell, eyes, whatever you would like to have. But obviously, these are unborn children. These are most likely through IVF production. So there are problems with this because a lot of countries don't even allow this kind of research. They don't even allow that you use these human embryonic stem cells. And also, if you're interested to mimic diseases in a dish, then it is very, very difficult because these are not diseased. So you cannot really study the disease in the dish with these because you can study development. Another, Another invention, which also got the Nobel Prize in 2007, was by a Japanese professor called Yamanaka. And what he did, he took the cells of a patient or a human being. Actually, he did it in mice first, and then later it was done in humans. So you take a skin cell, and then the next step is that you basically put in 4 genes. So you artificially add genes which are expressed into these cells, and then these cells go all the way back just because of these 4 particular genes which become proteins, and they become pluripotent like embryonic stem cells. So you can turn back the clock in these cells and you can get them back into an embryonic state. And then you can do lots of cool things with these cells, because then you can take, for example, an Alzheimer patient, take the cells, reprogram them, and then you differentiate them into neurons, and then you can directly study the disease on a cellular level in a dish, which is very beneficial because so far only mice have been used or other animals, but these are animals, so they are different, so it's always good to get a human perspective on this. You could also envision that you can repair gene defects and transplant these cells back, as you can see down here. Or you can use these cells, which is most likely done at the moment, to screen these, like take an Alzheimer patient and make these cells, and then you can screen drugs. So you can find basically, are there any medications which are beneficial in these cells, which can revert the disease phenotype. So they can be very useful. Okay, and I just want to give you one example for stem cell trials, which are ongoing. So there are trials or there are cures where you can use stem cells for. And this particular example is macular degeneration. So what happens to these people is that the cells in the back of the eye start to die, and they lose their vision in the center of the field. So what then has been done is they took stem cells and differentiated these cells into the particular cells over here, and then transplant them back into the eye of the diseased person, and voila, the person has improved vision. I mean, this is optimal, but at least it didn't go worse, and in some cases, it got better. On the downside, you have stem cell tourism. So there are certain applications, like for example, with eye disease, you can cure eye diseases. There's also examples that you might be able to cure spinal cord injuries, But there's also a big downside because it is very much pushed in the public that these stem cells can cure every disease you can think of. So people which are very desperate and very sick are seeking stem cell treatment, and they usually pay a lot of money for that. And these are just a couple of famous cases. So one was actually in Germany, and the clinic has been shut down after that. So there were children which had certain diseases, and what they did is they basically injected stem cells into the brain of a child. This child had an adverse reaction, and it actually died. So they can be very dangerous because obviously your immune system is detecting these cells as foreign, and you cannot just inject cells. The problem is also that these cells have a potential, so they are pluripotent. As I showed you in the beginning, they're like very early embryos. They can develop into everything. So they can also make tumors. So if you get cells injected, you can also develop tumors. And if you want to cure, for example, Alzheimer's, and you know, Alzheimer's is where your brain gets dissolved and degenerates. But if you then inject cells and make the patient have cancer, brain cancer, then this is not really a cure. So these stem cell treatments, there's just some examples how expensive it is. It's quite expensive. You can get them in China, Thailand, Indonesia, but also in Germany. And this is just showing you where you can do it. So the most common countries for getting treatment are actually China, Germany, and Mexico. So what I wanted to tell you is there's a great potential with stem cells. You can use them for drug screens, you can use them for modeling diseases, and you can also use them to some extent in regenerative medicine. But this is still in the beginning, and it will take decades to have it really approved and secure. So all these people or clinics who are telling you to come and get treatment for, I don't know, Uncle Bob who is dying of Alzheimer's disease, that will not work. So they're basically just using you and your fear and your love to make money. And that is what I really have. As a stem cell researcher, it is very important for me that people know that we're not there yet, we're working on it, but all of this money-grabbing industry is very bad for the field. Thank you.